Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. I have a great show today. You know, you watch the show all the time, and you know that we love talking to leaders in their particular space, no matter what space it is, but we love business. And we also love to talk about compliance. I mean, compliance is such an important part of so many businesses throughout the world. Sometimes we don't talk about it as often as we should, because without good compliance, without what I call good thoughtware and software, what happens to a company is we've got major problems, because you have to be able to put together something that's not only going to resonate for your customers, but if you can't put it out there in a compliant way, man, you have a lot of challenges and a lot of problems ahead of you. So we've been able to invite one of the leaders in the space. He specializes in compliance in the life sciences space, but Steve Vincze, he's the founder and CEO of the TRESTLE Compliance company, really has a remarkable niche, a remarkable story, and really an incredible entrepreneurial journey that brought him to TRESTLE. He's really one of the go-to, what I call thoughtware and software experts in the life sciences space. We have him on the show today. I want to bring him on the show and talk about not only what he does with his clients, but generally speaking, what compliance is all about. Because whether you're a startup founder, whether you're a Fortune 100 CEO or a C-level executive at any type of company, small to mid-sized company, you need to be thinking about compliance. And let me tell you, if you're not thinking about it, boy, oh boy, that could just be a big, big road with a lot of potholes. So Steve, welcome to the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Well, thank you very much, Andy. It's a real honor and privilege to be here with you and especially your viewers.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. It's great to have you. Of course, TRESTLE's really knocking the cover off the ball. You really specialize in the life sciences, and there's some other things that you do as well at the company. You're moving into some other different avenues as well. But before we get started, we have so many questions about compliance and then specifically what you do at TRESTLE. Let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet. Tell us about TRESTLE, and then we'll get into it.
Well, TRESTLE, first of all, is a support for a bridge. And the reason we named our company TRESTLE is because we build bridges between the realms of law, science, medicine, business, and government when necessary. And we do that to help our clients get to the other side and create value. It's very counterintuitive when you think about compliance. Most people get a bit of a shudder and they tense up because they think of corporate handcuffs. They think of obstacles and time and delay and bureaucracy. Now, I couldn't be more of a free market capitalist Milton Friedman fan. That's why I went to the University of Chicago for business school. But I'm also an attorney, and I'm a son of a physician. And so I speak these languages through a quirk of fate. But we help translate what can be onerous regulations into clear, simple processes that add value and are a force multiplier for companies. Again, very counterintuitive, a pro-business approach to compliance.
Yeah, I love it. Of course, I love it. You're the bridge, but also you're a force multiplier. And those two things really connect, which is why you came up with the name TRESTLE when you brought, TRESTLE onto the market. It's really interesting because when we think about it, like you said, you've got this great background and experience in law. You understand business, you understand the economy, you understand capitalism. You also understand the life sciences through sort of a family integration. What types of companies, Steve, reach out to TRESTLE and they say, hey, we've heard about you. We need some help. What types of companies currently are reaching out, and what does that first conversation sound like, Steve?
Well, the current companies that are reaching out are chief commercial officers, general counsels of companies that are either preparing to launch their very first product. In other words, making the pivot from an R&D, a research-based organization to a commercial one, or a company that has its legs on the ground and is looking to enter the U.S. market. So we have several foreign clients, or an established company that already has one or two products and is looking to beef up its compliance support structure in order to ensure the company can handle the added risks and the added pressure of bringing on more products and more salespeople and more operations.
Yeah, it's interesting. Let's talk about sort of the ROI. Let's talk about what happens, Steve, to a company when they get along the path. Maybe they start moving a little faster than they should have, and they're not thinking about compliance and what happens or potentially could happen to a company, whether it's a startup or a small to mid-sized company that really is behind the eight ball with regard to their compliance. What types of problems are they facing if they don't answer this problem early on?
Well, the classic problem that you've described in part, Andy, is having been a Marine and been an expert rifleman. There's something called chasing the bullseye. And it's when you're not properly focused on your front sight, post, breathe, and squeeze to hit the center mass of the bullseye. And what causes that is looking beyond the bullseye and just looking at a fuzzy target down there and trying to hit it. In other words, in the hubbub of going commercial, and most of these companies don't have a lot of experience. Even their general counsels are often IP attorneys, corporate attorneys with not a whole lot of experience in commercialization and the whole compliance landscape and framework. So what they end up doing is chasing after reactive issues that they either hear about or read about. And it's not a complete structure, and it's not risk-based. That's the number one thing both the Department of Justice and I recommend is do a thorough risk assessment. It's like before you enter into a fitness program, you do a head-to-toe physical, make sure you know where your strengths and weaknesses are, and then you can attack. And again, that's a key word. Being a Marine, I've been trained to attack and win. There's no rewards for second place. And I hopefully am speaking the language of entrepreneurs now. You eat what you kill or you don't survive. You have to get out there, compete and win, and beat your competition. Now, this sounds a little counterintuitive, probably from an attorney compliance guy like me, but I get it as an entrepreneur. And so what we do is talk to our folks, and we also encourage them to bring in a broader C-suite team, their board, so that we can develop a relationship, develop a sense of confidence in our capabilities and background to support their mission, their goal, their objectives. So we need to understand exactly who they are, what they're all about, and then educate in part folks that compliance can be a compliance program, a tremendous vehicle to build out your values, your personality, your identity as a company, to first and foremost, inspire and motivate your troops. You want to inspire your sales force. You want to give them the confidence that they can get out there, compete and win safely. Okay, so we're not sacrificing people, and like in Ukraine, where the Russian troops being sent in as cannon fodder. We want to send our salespeople out there well prepared, safe, and with the confidence to know that they're prepared on their product line, on their compliance, on their privacy, on their safety. They know their competition, so they know what to do to, again, achieve results. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's powerful. Of course, you mentioned chasing the bullseye, and then you use words like attack and win. And entrepreneurs watching the show, you know that this type of wording, this type of phraseology really resonates for you, because you want someone that not only has the talent like Steve and the team at Trestle has, but also can understand you as an entrepreneur. And with Steve's military background, we hear this all the time from military-led companies, people that are veterans, that they really understand what the mission is about. They understand about objectives. They understand about how to put sort of a game plan in place, and then how to effectuate the game plan to the best possible outcome. And what happens for the people that hire someone with this type of mindset is you start looking at the ROI, and the ROI becomes much more magnified, much more enhanced, much better when you have someone like Steve and his team sort of putting together the game plan, the action steps to get you from point A to B. Now, Steve, let's talk about it a little bit. When we think about the life sciences, what are some of the compliance issues, some of the main compliance issues that the life sciences type companies need to think about? Maybe for the entrepreneurs that are thinking about going into the life sciences, let's give them a little hint of what they need to start thinking about ahead of time.
Yeah, well, life sciences is a very complex industry. It's cutting edge science that's life changing, life saving. And the FDA, which was founded back under Theodore Roosevelt's presidency in the early 1900s, is all about two things: safety and efficacy. And that's been because some tragedies have occurred over the decades since the FDA was founded. And so that's number one: patient safety, and then making sure the drugs work through repeatable clinical studies that prove that they are within a certain label, and that's the approved label. So the number one risk for life science companies historically, the biggest settlements, in other words, that started in the hundreds of millions of dollars and have actually crossed the threshold of billions of dollars. As an old Senator, Everett Dirksen from Illinois, used to say, a billion here, a billion there, you start talking real money. But it's commercialization. It's inappropriate sales and marketing. And why is that such a governmental priority? Because patients' lives depend on it, number one. And number two, federal taxpayer dollars go to pay for this stuff. And so that needs to be appreciated. And while I certainly don't agree with all regulations, in fact, there are way too many and encumbering, at the same time, we have to say that patient safety and drug efficacy is critically important to understand and regulate. So there's an appropriate role for the government to play an umpire. But again, it's a delicate balance where really the private and public sectors really need to work together. And in a way, it's much like compliance and commercial and R&D all need to work together as a cohesive team where we understand each other's missions and goals and complement them. Every Marine officer is trained as an infantry officer, regardless of their specialty. So I was first an artillery officer, and then a lawyer, and then an intelligence officer, but we're all trained in the mission of the infantry and how we support it. So that's how compliance should be viewed. And whether that's commercial compliance or privacy, cybersecurity, which increasingly since COVID have meshed together and go hand in hand because of the need to communicate as we are here today over Zoom, and being sensitive to those things. Another dynamic that has given rise to that is the focus on rare diseases and how you increasingly are providing patient support through patient support mechanisms, trained nurses. A lot of these drugs are injectable. So there needs to be a lot of transfer of information, a very sensitive information, and that's a key risk area increasingly.
Yeah, it's interesting. The transfer of sensitive information, we talk about it all the time. There has to be a system in place, a compliance program in place, because that is such an important aspect of the life sciences. When we think about it, Stephen, we talk about the life sciences as a whole, and we think about someone that's thinking about getting into the space. Maybe they want to open a new company. Maybe they're a startup founder. Maybe they've raised some, Series A money. Maybe they're down the road a little bit. Early on, how important is it to make sure that you've got the compliance covered? Do you recommend for the younger entrepreneurs that are getting into the life sciences to sort of push that off a bit because maybe it becomes an expensive proposition early on? Or do we get involved with it early so that you don't have the expensive mistakes later on?
Well, that's a great question. In the past, compliance was a clunky, very expensive bolt-on program that you put in place quickly at a fairly urgent way because something went wrong. But, in the Marines, they teach you proper prior planning prevents blank poor performance. And so the sooner you can get ahead of the game, the better. But one of the great advances over the past 20 plus years is that I've been able to figure out how do you scale up with the business and not have to sort of bolt on all this expensive processes. Compliance officers don't come cheap, and neither does software and their staff. And so the answer to your question is start early, but start in a proper scale. So the first thing is, to answer the question, compliance with what? And that's it's a mountain, and you can get overwhelmed. But as with anyone that's climbed mountains, it's important to plan it out, but then take the first step and take the next step and make sure you follow a plan that has built-in flexibility. Because Mother Nature doesn't always cooperate, neither does business or science or the Justice Department. So you have to have someone that's knowledgeable. If you're climbing the Himalayas, you want a good guide to get you to the top safely and back, right? And so you don't want to just rush off and invest in some cutting edge science and molecule, found this business, get your investors together. Again, most founders are PhD, MD scientists. They focus on two things, the science and the financing. And then they realize, okay, we're either going to cash out and sell our R&D company to big pharma, or we're going to build this thing into something more. And that's where the pivot to commercialization comes into play. What I would recommend in the very beginning, what you want to do, again, is going back to my original statement of inspire and motivate your people. You want to attract the best talent and keep them. And that has to be genuine and sincere and heartfelt. The good news here is that I have found most founders and executives just having an overabundance of passion, right? Passion in the science, passion in their vision of addressing a cure, or at least a remedy, a treatment to some rare disease or some ailment, and making life better. And again, the healthcare, as a Harvard professor said once on a 2020 program, is different. It's different. And I grew up seeing that with my dad as a physician. It requires empathy. It requires a real sincere caring for your patients. The patients are always, and their welfare, number one. The first rule, do no harm, right? And so anyone working in the life sciences, whether you're an attorney, a business person, a scientist, an administrative person, an executive, whatever you are, you need to be bought in, inspired, and passionate about the broader mission and values that this company represents. And that's where compliance can be a true vehicle for this, where you first develop a code of conduct. And you hear it across different industries now. You hear it across different athletic organizations, you name it. Eventually, and often it's too late, people who sort of get it and say, okay, we need to have a code of conduct. But again, that to many people is cringeworthy, because you envision this lengthy, legalistic, dry, boring tome of a document. And rather, you need to have something clear, simple, that captures the essence of who you are, but then also the risks to your company. So it needs to be risk-based. And again, you need a good Sherpa, a good guide to get you to the top of that mountain that you're heading towards. Now, it won't happen overnight. And again, that's where scalability is critically important for cost efficiency as well as compliance efficiency. So you're not going to be complying with commercial regulations from the outset when you start. You're going to be complying with R&D requirements. And the FDA is very specific on those kinds of things. So you need to have FDA expertise. You also, privacy, cybersecurity is also going to be front and center right away. So if you're going to go public, any SEC requirements and public disclosures and appropriate financing requirements under Sarbanes-Oxley, where we had the great financial crises in the early 2000s with Enron and WorldCom, et cetera. So again, size does matter when it comes to your company and what your vision is and where you want to go and how you want to get there and how fast. And so all that needs to be factored in into this equation. One of the things that I'm really bringing to the table is a very precise roadmap that we use using software, where we build in flexibility, but again, the people we work with have live access to this roadmap, this work plan that's very detailed. So there's no surprise. People that work for me know, don't surprise, Steve. I mean, I accept it and we roll with it, but the degree we can avoid surprises, the better for everybody. And so we bring a sense of calm, a steady as she goes, stewardship to sailing the ship of compliance across the ocean, and again, to create value for the company.
I love it, Steve. Of course, this is really interesting because you say compliance to inspire and motivate. I mean, I love that quote right there. That might be the new tagline for Trestle. We think about it. I have a good friend of mine that went up to Mount Everest and he made it to the top, thank goodness, and made it down, which is even more important, as you know, because most of the problems happen on the way down. And he told me that thank goodness for the Sherpa. He had someone that was a solid Sherpa that helped bring his team up. And it's the same way in compliance. You need that person that gets you from point A to B, that knows how to weave in and out of the different potential problems that you're going to have. And one thing you do that we love is you've made this dedication, I'm going to call it, to data. You love data. I mean, you're a data-driven company. What was it, Steve, that really turned Trestle to really open its eyes and sort of have this bright light happen that data really has to drive all of the decisions and all of the compliance with the companies that you serve?
Well, it's the broader world around us, and not being oblivious to it, and then thinking broadly, well, how can we apply these insights with technology to what we do as a business? Again, trying to differentiate ourselves from other very competent attorneys and consultants and accountants. And that's where the other goal here is to how do we keep things simple and make them simpler and more cost effective? So employ technology with the brightest human guidance. You can't just have technology. You need people there that know what they're doing, but combining the both. And again, you've quoted one of our taglines, using the best thoughtware and software together creates the most value, particularly for the kinds of clients that we help, which are generally smaller mid-cap companies that are looking to commercialize or have commercialized and need some added boost firepower when it comes to compliance.
Yeah, I love it, Steve. Of course, your testimonials, your case studies on your website are phenomenal. A lot of sort of really powerful companies have reached out and have used, your company's services, and it's really remarkable. And when we think about your team and we think about the clients, sometimes when we think about compliance, we think about life sciences, data, we sort of forget about the customer, we forget about the client, we forget about the human being sort of behind all of that. But one thing you've been able to do at Trestle, Steve, is you've been able to really continue to focus on the actual client. You know that people are really the most important part of any business. And if you don't have the right people in place with the right compliance programs in place that really motivates and inspires them, a company is going to have a big problem. So where did this come from? Where did this idea come from? Was this something from the military? Was this something you learned when you grew up with the family, with your father being the doctor, about always taking care of the client?
Well, that's a great question. It really evolved throughout my childhood, watching my dad in the hospital when I was 18, mopping floors. Our family always believed you start at the bottom. And so you can appreciate where you'll end up if you don't work hard. And I saw the sincerity with which he dealt with patients and how patients responded to him. Now, medicine wasn't for me. It was a little bit too nitty gritty and from a physical perspective. But, just like they say in The Godfather, the more you try to get out, the more they suck you back in. So it's in my DNA. But I got to where I am working in the life sciences through law and through business. But it's a wonderful, inspiring journey. But the bottom line here is as you say, at the end of the day, all business people know it's about people and the relationships you build with people, whether they're your customers, whether they're your clients, whether they're your peers or people you work for. There's a key ingredient that must exist: trust. You have to build trust. And once you do, that's a bond that strengthens with repeatable actions that each side demonstrates to the other that they're dependable, they're reliable, they're human, and they acknowledge it. I don't know everything, and anyone that claims to is just simply not telling the truth. So, one of the things I do is say, look, this is I'm familiar with this, but it's not the sweet spot of my expertise. But I can find the right answer for you with the right expertise, because I have built over the years of nearly now going on 30 years. An incredible network of folks, both in the political world, legal world, business world, life science world. And so I can pick up the phone or look in my contact list pretty quickly. And we have some of the most preeminent people on our advisory board, professor from Harvard, professor from Chicago, a leading partner at law firms, et cetera, that I can just literally dial their cell number and get them on. They answer the phone. But the key is trust. trust combined with integrity, character and integrity. And all great leaders that I've had the honor and privilege to work with, you see one of them behind me, General Colin Powell, who signed that for me when I was at the Pentagon. Whether in the political business worlds, they all operated from a core of integrity. And I learned that first and foremost from my mom and dad, growing up at home, is that you're always honest again and try to be. We're human. We make mistakes, but then you own up to it and you own the mistake and you learn from it, and that makes you stronger. And it's that kind of mindset where we want to get out there and accomplish the mission, whatever that may be. And we're working as a team that's built on trust and a shared vision. And we drive. Again, I'm about to publish a book called Winning with Compliance, Driving Business Performance with Integrity. And that's the key. Again, you can't be naive or pie in the sky, a kind of person. And that's always, I did a research paper for my LLM at Georgetown Law. And one of the things I found that, ethics programs separately have been around, but they've been sort of poo-pooed as sort of pie in the sky, soft and squishy, ephemeral kind of stuff that you can't get your arms around. And the pendulum swung to a more legalistic, very, you're either doing it right or you're wrong. If it's wrong, you're fired, and that kind of hardcore kind of stuff. And that didn't work either because people became afraid. When people are afraid, they clam up. They don't share information and they leave. And then they may become whistleblowers. The number one risk to all companies is internal from whistleblowers, jaded employees. And we can talk more about that. But it's really the key is character and integrity and exuding that with your passion, your inner passion. I saw a clip, and you may have seen a reel on Facebook or wherever it was, where someone said, these billionaires that tell you just follow your passion, don't listen to them. Follow what you're good at. And when you get really good at it, you become passionate about it. So I agree with him. I agree with him 100%. You follow what you're good at, and that leads to opportunities. You have to be able to recognize them when they're there and then seize them, seize the day, carpe diem. And then be passionate about how you do it. And don't look back, don't be paralyzed by the pursuit of perfection, whether that's in compliance or business or anything else. Go for it. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Wow. For the entrepreneurs watching the show, rewind what Steve just said. I mean, he gave you I used to call it a Harvard MBA. He gave you a Georgetown law degree right there about taking care of business. I mean, doing the right thing, being above the crowd, doing what's right for your clients. Yes, you're going to make some mistakes along the way, but own up to those mistakes and keep on pushing forward. I love it. Now, before I let you go, we want to talk about entrepreneurship. I'm going to bring you back on the show because I do want to talk about that whistleblower aspect with ex-employees. Maybe we'll bring you back on the show for a business update. I can see a full 30 minutes on that, Steve, but I want to talk about partnerships, because of course you've got an advisory board. They're fantastic. They're on speed dial. They're on your cell phone. They get back to you. I mean, some of the best in the world, but you also put together, Steve, some great tech partnerships as well. Some technology companies that you partner with to be able to provide the best in class service to your clients. How important are those partnerships to the success of TRESTLE?
They're very important. Again, we provide the thoughtware and they provide the software. They're the technology partners that we have. And then within our own team, we have preeminent experts of partner level service. So what we like to say is we don't follow the standard consulting firm model where you get hire bright but inexperienced young associates that learn on your time and dime. We hire partner level people with over 20 years experience, so they hit the ground running, and you still get the savings of hiring a boutique company like us. Why do these people do it? Because they love it. They're good at it. And that's what we provide. So it's these partnerships with our technology partners, OneTrust and Core Data, provide the efficiency and speed of data analytics, of privacy systems, prevention systems, compliance systems, whether it's for HIPAA, for health information protection, or GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe. each of these organizations are preeminent, again, in their areas, and we're very pleased and proud to partner with them.
Yeah, I love it. Of course, it's phenomenal. You're the thoughtware, your team is the thoughtware, but you also have software on the team, and then you've got software partners, and it really makes for a great bundle. Before we let you go, I know we've only cut out a certain amount of time. I want to talk to the entrepreneurs. I mean, you already gave some beautiful key points to entrepreneurs watching the show. Rewind the entire interview. I mean, there's been some great gems here. But speaking directly to the younger entrepreneurs that want to get into this business, maybe they have a passion for life science, maybe they have the new, latest, and greatest thing they want to bring out to the market, but maybe they hit a pothole. Maybe they hit a little hole in the road. Maybe they freak out, they freeze in the frame, they don't know what to do. Typical entrepreneurial stuff like that.
Right.
For the younger entrepreneurs, Steve, maybe you can share some insight about what it takes to keep on pushing when the going gets tough to get to your destination.
Yeah, it's a great question and point to make. All of us, no matter who we are, have better days than other days. So we have some down days, and you have to persevere and get it through. But how do you do it? That's the real question that you're asking. How do you do it? Well, each of us are different, but I'm a big believer that it all starts inside here with you. And you need to understand who you are and have the confidence in yourself to persevere and tackle either it's a new challenge or an old challenge, or if it's a weakness that's raised its head again, that you procrastinate or you do something that you've been struggling with. First of all, don't beat yourself up. Accept it and learn about how to do that. And then again, re-inspire yourself by looking to either writings that you've read about other people, Abraham Lincoln and all his prior failures and losses, and look to the levels that he rose, to history, the Battle of Britain, where all seemed lost, and the inspirational words of Winston Churchill resonated throughout the countryside. And don't sell yourself short, but don't sell your emotions short. Emotion can be both powerfully positive and negative. You need to figure out what gets your adrenaline flowing, whether it's AC/DC or Led Zeppelin or something else. Crank it up, go work out. I'm a big believer that physical activity combined with intellectual stimulation is the key. And I think most champions, most business leaders don't, it's more than ironic that they also participate in fitness and intellectual pursuits. The two go together. I mean, you have to understand the human body and how it works. So inspire and motivate yourself, get healthy, break out of whatever pattern you may be in that's maybe bogging you down, do something different, take a break sometimes. One of the things that too many entrepreneurs is get tired. They get so wound up and beat up by the day. They're working, 18, 20 hours, 16 hours a day. You get exhausted. Take a break, refresh, recharge, get re-inspired. My wife kids me about my office. It's full of plaques and diplomas and stuff, but there's a reason for that, because when I get down, I look around and say, you know what, Steve, you've worked hard and you've achieved some good things. Now, are you satisfied? No, but it's good to remind yourself of where you've been and what you've done and how you're helping, hopefully, to change the world in a positive way, making a positive difference. And that's where, again, it comes back to your inner core of character and integrity. If you feel good about yourself, it's a real freeing of your spirit, of your imagination, and ideas come to you. But the other very practical consideration that I'd like to add, though, as a businessman, is to always be mindful of cash flow. Cash is king. Do not overspend. Do not get into extraordinary debt. Start your business with a customer in hand. That's one thing I was advised of. And I had a great mentor, a gentleman named Pat Sharon, ambulance company president up in the Pittsburgh area. And he's the one that encouraged me, because I was with another company. He said, Steve, the only reason we've hired these guys is because of you. You should start your own company and we'll be your first customer. And then with my family and everything else, I decided to do it. This was back in the 90s. And he was very wise, and I was wise to listen to him. So So those are some pieces of advice. I know we're a bit short on time, but again, recharge, reinvigorate, re-inspire, remotivate yourself with yourself, and take a break. Be conscious of the physical dimension of your life. Get fit, get healthy, get the adrenaline flowing. And then before you know it, you'll be off and running again. And ideas and opportunities will be coming your way, and life will be good.
Wow. Fantastic, Steve. You're really a shining light on the hill of life sciences and compliance. I mean, TRESTLE's really doing a great job. This has been great. I want to bring you back, of course, to talk about some of the challenges with ex-employees as they leave the office or leave the business, and we'll talk about that at a future date. But I want to thank you so much for cutting out some time for us today. This has been a great insight in not only what TRESTLE is doing, but the way in which you approach it with your background experience, the way in which you want to inspire and motivate through really data and the thoughtware that you bring to the table and the software with the partners in, as well as what TRESTLE brings to the table as well. So what a great interview. Thanks so much for coming on the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
It's been a real honor and privilege, Andy. Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure.